For as long as I could remember, my father's company felt like a second home. I used to run around those office floors as a child, handing out staplers and paper clips like I owned the place. By the time I was 24, I had worked in nearly every department, learning, building, helping, always staying one step behind my dad, soaking in everything he did. Everyone said I was the next in line. And for a while, even I believed it. Until Dad got sick. The conversations changed after that. They became quieter. More closed-door meetings, more hush-hush decisions. And then one day, he announced that my younger sister, Naomi, would be taking over the company. Not as interim, as the new CEO. It was like the floor disappeared beneath me. Naomi had worked in the marketing department for barely 3 years. She came in late, left early, and mostly talked about how stressful her workload was while other people picked up her slack. But she had charm. She was good at putting on a show, and clearly she had learned how to work our father's trust in ways I hadn't seen coming. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I shook hands, smiled, and told Dad I supported the decision, even though inside it felt like a blade through the chest. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. 2 months after Naomi stepped in, she called me into her office. The blinds were half closed, and she didn't even look up from her laptop when she said, "We're letting you go." Just like that. No conversation, no warning, just a cold sentence delivered like I was a stranger. I blinked, waiting for her to crack a smile, to say it was a joke. But she didn't. "Why?" I asked, stunned. She finally looked up, adjusting her expensive scarf, and said, "You've been too comfortable here for too long. I want a new team, fresh energy, no offense." No offense? I had given 10 years of my life to this company. I had sacrificed weekends, birthdays, relationships, and now I was being dismissed by someone who barely understood the backbone of how this business ran. I stood up, calm on the outside, but my heart was pounding. "You're making a mistake, Naomi," I said softly. She rolled her eyes. "Please don't get dramatic. It's just business." "No, Naomi, it wasn't. And you had no idea what was coming next. Walking out of that building felt surreal. It was the first time in over a decade I didn't have a desk to return to, a morning meeting to prepare for, or a staff member counting on my guidance. I wasn't just fired, I was erased, like none of it had ever mattered. But as I stood outside those glass doors with my box of memories, something inside me clicked. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. That night, I didn't sulk or drown myself in sadness. I pulled out my old notebooks, the ones filled with ideas I had once pitched but were always shelved or ignored. Ideas that could have taken the company to new heights, but were too risky, too ambitious, according to Naomi and the board. Now, I had no one to answer to, and no reason not to try. The next morning, I got to work. I used the severance Naomi had smugly offered me, thinking it was some kind of parting gift, to set up something of my own. I reached out to 5 former clients who had always appreciated my honesty and strategy. By the end of the week, 3 of them agreed to shift their accounts to me. Quietly. No drama, just trust. Within 2 months, I registered my own consulting firm. Small, lean, focused. What Naomi hadn't realized was that while she was busy playing CEO, I had been the one holding most of the client relationships together. I wasn't just a cog in the wheel, I was the glue. And once that glue was gone, things started falling apart. I began to hear whispers from old coworkers. The new product line Naomi launched? It bombed. The flashy hires she brought in? 2 quit within weeks. Even the board was starting to get nervous, and word was, Dad wasn't impressed. Not that he said anything, not yet. One afternoon, a longtime vendor emailed me. "Naomi's team doesn't return calls. I miss when you used to run point. You ever think about expanding?" That email sat with me, not because of what it asked, but because of what it confirmed. Naomi may have taken the title, but she never had the trust. And then came the moment that changed everything. I got a call from Dad. His voice was quiet, a little tired. "You free for coffee?" We met at our usual spot. He looked older, not just physically, emotionally, like he had aged 10 years in 10 weeks. He didn't waste time. "I made a mistake," he said. I didn't speak. I let him talk. "I thought giving the company to Naomi would bring the family closer. I didn't want you to carry all the pressure I once did, but I didn't realize how unprepared she was." I nodded, not to gloat, just to acknowledge his words. He continued, "The board's not happy, clients are leaving, and she's overwhelmed." I sipped my coffee slowly. "She's not built for it, Dad. And you knew that. But you chose her anyway." He looked down. "I did." Silence again. "Then let her fix it," I said, standing, "because I'm not coming back to clean up a mess she made by pushing me out." His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something different in them. Respect. "Maybe you don't have to come back," he said. "Maybe it's time to build something better." I smiled. "Already ahead of you, Dad." In the months that followed, my consulting firm grew faster than I could have imagined. What started with 3 loyal clients turned into 10, then 20. Word got around in the industry. I wasn't just another ex-employee. I was the one clients trusted when they needed real solutions, not flashy presentations. Meanwhile, Naomi's empire was crumbling from the inside out. Employees began to quit one after another. Some left quietly. Others, I heard, left with loud arguments in conference rooms and exit emails CC'd to the board. A few even reached out to me privately, asking if I was hiring. The irony? These were people who used to roll their eyes when I stayed late or refused shortcuts. Now they were hoping I'd let them be part of something that actually had structure. One day, I received an anonymous envelope, an internal report from Naomi's company, a mess of numbers, losses, and missed targets. No name, no return address. Just the report and a sticky note that read, "You were right." I didn't need to investigate where it came from. I already knew. But I didn't need Naomi's downfall to feel validated. That wasn't the point. I had moved on. I had grown. What she failed to understand was that leadership isn't inherited, it's earned. Titles mean nothing when the foundation is weak, and she built everything on the illusion of being in control. But when things didn't go her way, she panicked, blamed, avoided, and most of all, she couldn't take responsibility. That was the difference between us. I faced setbacks and learned from them. She faced setbacks and fired people. One morning, I got a call from an international client who had been under Naomi's account. "We've been reviewing performance, and we're no longer confident in their team. We'd like to switch over to yours, if you're available." I didn't react right away. I knew what this meant. Naomi's biggest client, the one Dad had personally handed to her with pride, was now walking away. Straight to me. I accepted. That same afternoon, I got a message from an old friend still working under Naomi's leadership. It said, "She just found out you took the flagship account. She's in shock. She didn't think you'd bounce back. She definitely didn't think you'd bounce up." I stared at that message for a while. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about liberation. Naomi fired me because she saw me as a threat. And now, without even trying to retaliate, I had done the one thing she feared the most. I rose without her. And she was learning that power, when misused, always comes with a cost. About a week after I signed that international client, I got a call I didn't expect. Naomi. I stared at her name flashing on my phone, debating whether to ignore it. But curiosity won. I answered, keeping my tone neutral. "Hello?" Her voice cracked on the other end. "I need to talk to you. Please." There was a pause. Her tone was nothing like the smug CEO from months ago. It was shaky, small, like someone watching their world collapse and realizing they had no idea how to stop it. We agreed to meet at the cafe where Dad and I used to go. I arrived early, and when she walked in, she looked like a shadow of herself. No high heels, no designer scarf, just a trembling cup of coffee in her hands and swollen eyes. "I messed everything up," she said without even sitting down. "I thought I could do it all, but I didn't even know what I was doing." She sat across from me, her hands fidgeting nonstop. "The board's meeting next week to vote on whether I stay. I've lost 6 major clients. I'm bleeding staff. Dad won't return my calls. And I just needed to see you before it all falls apart. I listened. She didn't sugarcoat anything this time. No deflecting, no passive-aggressive jabs, just raw, uncomfortable honesty. I fired you because I felt threatened, she admitted. You were always the one everyone looked to. You knew how the company ran. I didn't, and I thought if I got you out of the picture, I could finally lead without being compared to you. Her voice cracked again. But I was wrong. I wasn't ready, and I let the wrong people advise me. I didn't say anything for a moment, because while a part of me had waited to hear those exact words, another part of me wasn't angry anymore. I had moved on. I'm not coming back, Naomi, I said quietly. Not to clean up, not to fix what you broke, and not to save your title. She nodded. No resistance. I know, I just wanted you to hear it from me. I needed you to know that I get it now. That was the moment I saw her as something other than the sister who betrayed me. I saw her as someone trying to face what she had done. Finally. I don't hate you, I said, more to myself than to her. But I've found peace on the other side of all this, and I won't trade that for anything. She looked at me with tired eyes. Then I hope you never lose it. We sat in silence for a while after that. There were no dramatic exits, no screaming, no tears on the floor, just the quiet end of a chapter that had defined so much of my pain and a slow turning of the page. 3 months later, the company Naomi once tried to run was sold. Not to me, I didn't need it, but to a larger firm that absorbed what was left of it, restructuring the teams and replacing nearly every executive, including Naomi. She didn't fight it. By then, she had accepted that her reign was over. Her fall wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, slow. The kind that happens when the truth finally catches up with image. As for me, I was thriving. My firm had grown from a tiny seed into a full-blown success story. We weren't the biggest name in the industry, but we were respected. I had built something of my own. No shortcuts, no favors, no family strings. Clients came because they trusted me. Employees stayed because they felt heard. And I woke up every morning with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. One evening, Dad invited me to dinner. He was healthier now, more at peace. I think watching both his daughters go through the fire had forced him to reflect on his own choices. Over a quiet meal, he lifted his glass and said, "You made something out of nothing." I should have seen that strength earlier. I smiled. I'm glad I did it without needing you to. He didn't argue, because he knew I was right. Naomi and I weren't close again after that, but we weren't enemies either. Just distant siblings, each carrying our own lessons. Every now and then, she'd send a check-in text. I'd reply with a polite update. That was enough, because closure doesn't always come with hugs or big emotional speeches. Sometimes it comes with silence that no longer hurts. Sometimes the win isn't revenge, it's peace. I wasn't the forgotten sister anymore. I wasn't the helper, the filler, the safety net. I was the storm that rebuilt everything that tried to destroy me. And when people whispered about how Naomi lost the company, they didn't say it with pity. They said it with respect for the woman who rose quietly from the ashes and built an empire of her own.